Welcome, everybody, to our first edition of Kyloe Unmuted, where we have a regular series where we sit down with staffing industry experts and veterans to discuss all things staffing. I am the host, Rob Mann. Today I'm here with the amazing, and I'm going to get this last name pronounced right, Beth Schneider. Yep. The Chief Client Officer at HealthStaff. Beth, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. I appreciate you being the first guest. It's always a tall order to be the first. You're a trailblazer.
Sure.
So, um, number one, Beth and Lead Health Staff work with Kyloe directly, as well as a lot of the staffing technology industry leaders, which is super exciting because I love working with people who love technology. And Beth, why don't you give a quick overview, besides for your tech stack, of Lead Health Staff and yourself?
Great, thank you. So, Lead Health Staff is a provider of travel nurses and surge tech clinicians across the nation. We've been in business for over 15 years, focusing on originally it was West Coast only, and then broadened our scope with the opportunity to do so. So, we work with acute healthcare facilities and support the patient care story.
Love it.
Thank you. So I've been in healthcare staffing for just over 15 years, staffing in general for over 20. Started when I was 12, and I love our industry. I love everything about it. I love supporting our facilities, our clients, our nurses, surge techs, and making everything work. And again, just supporting that patient care story.
No, and you have a very close tie to it. So we'll kick off with a little bit of a personal story. Uh, your mom's a nurse, and how
My
long was
mom,
she a nurse for?
she was a nurse for 33 years, which
Yeah.
was a really unique view. And I thought for a hot second I should be one too, until I realized what it really entailed, regarding both the dedication to the patients and the level of care that they required. And I'm just not meant for that. So, with the blessing of just coincidence and a great salesman father, I ended up supporting it on the other side. So, I'm privileged to be using what I have and the experience that I had growing up with my mom to support that. So,
So,
it's a cool
so
view.
first question: did your mom travel?
No, she didn't. So she actually stayed at one facility for the entire 33 years, a couple
Oh,
different units. She did ER, float pool, ICU, and outpatient surgery.
so she's one of those old school employees of a company who stayed everywhere and had a pension, and that's not how things are working anymore. But it definitely worked for them.
Yes.
My mom worked as a high school teacher, basically at the same high school for 20 something years. So I don't remember exactly. I think she did 27 at the school that she finished at, and maybe like 7 or 8 at her first school. Um, but yeah, and does having a mom, do you think, who was in the industry help you with those conversations? Maybe especially when you're getting started in the
Oh,
industry.
hands down. So it gave me a really unique view. Like I said, she worked a couple different units, and my dinner time stories were her day at work. So, you heard challenges regarding patients, management, how, really the opportunity to care for patients was getting lost in the corporate world, in the corporate hustle, more patients, less time to do things. Hearing her complain about implementation of technology, it's supposed to make it easier, but then it makes it more difficult. In one of her units, when they implemented an EMR, the only way they were supposed to take a patient temperature was on their forehead. But that wasn't an option in their dropdown because nobody mapped their unit and how they needed to operate. So to hear those challenges, you really get to understand and appreciate what goes into being a nurse and not just caring for patients every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. So I worked in physician staffing, and I remember I had a doctor who didn't like an EMR and refused to go to a facility that was 20 minutes from his house, and ended up traveling to the south of Texas because they told him it was a different EMR, I guess the other locums company, and it was the same EMR that he would have had 20 minutes from his house. So don't do that to your clinicians. But anyway, it was quite ironic when I talked to him and he was complaining to me, and I was like, I'm not making money with you right now. So my level of sympathy for that problem is very low right now. But I do get it. And it is definitely an issue. It also kind of talks about when you implement technology that you should talk to all of the stakeholders in a business, no matter the division, across all divisions. And hospitals are particularly tricky because they can be quite large and have quite large users. So I like that you considered being a nurse and realized that that wasn't for you. Um, What does your mom think about travelers? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, she has great respect. So it wasn't as big of an industry when she was on the nursing floor. So, but she always appreciated them. She knew when they were brought into the unit that they were there to help. It wasn't a us against them. It was, hey, they're here to help us because somebody's on a maternity leave or we really need the support. So she does have an appreciation for them and really felt that it was her job as a full-time staff member to support them and help them through it, because without them, it wouldn't be as beneficial. So, she was a firm believer in the help that they provided.
Yeah, and then it makes sense, right? Like if you want the best output or outcome for your patients, having hands on deck, skilled hands on deck, ideally, but that's usually what you get, or normally what you get, is going to provide a much better outcome for your patients. So, totally get in. Yeah, that's awesome. So wasn't as pervasive. Now it's a whole thing, and going strong. All right.
It is.
So let's get to the elephant in the room. How did I'm not even going to call it anything. I'm just going to say the years. How did what happened in the years 2020 and 2021 impact, you guys? And what do you think, as as someone who talks to clients all day, is here for good, and maybe what's going away? And we've already started to see some changes that we talked about in the pre-call, and I've been hearing from other travel nursing groups as well. So,
well, first and foremost, personally, I love Target Drive Up. May Target Drive Up never go away. So, okay. But that's me personally.
Okay, well, define, in case someone does not know what travel nursing is and what Target Drive Up is.
No,
Target Drive Up. Oh, I got it. Okay, I thought you were talking about nursing. Well, no. We love grocery delivery too, but Amazon started charging a fee for grocery delivery now, so it's not our favorite. Pickup is our favorite though, where they come out of the car. So I guess it's the same thing.
But it's been interesting to watch across the board, whether it's, in our personal lives or in our industry specifically, how it's been impacted. But, what I think is most fascinating is how nurses finally have the chance to be in on this gig workforce. IT, creative, marketing, they've had contingent workforce and contingent labor opportunities that have far exceeded clinical opportunities for years. So what's happened, with COVID and all of the movement and shortages is
I see what you did there. Movement. Never turn down a good cow pun when you're on Kyloe.
You got to bring it in there, right? Yeah. But it's given them that chance to be part of that gig workforce and not feel like that their only choices or ones that are beneficial for them are the ones that are full-time. They get the chance to be part of that contingent labor workforce and a very strong factor. So that's been amazing. What facilities are facing includes the clinician burnout, staff shortages, and their need to create fixes for it. And it's not easy. There's no one answer for any one facility. A rural facility is going to have different needs and different challenges than a metropolitan facility. So you have to start looking at what does that look like? Do we need a more team approach to clinical support? Should it be a team of one nurse with 2 CNAs or a CNA and an LVN to support them? Do we need to train them to float to more units and not just have one dedicated specialty per nurse? But you have to start looking at technology. Is it a staffing efficiency technology? Is it bonuses that are tied to the staffing tech that shows shortages? What does that look like? But what's cool is being on our side and being part of potential solutions like that and talking to clients and saying, where are your shortages? How can we help maybe create a float pool for you or in partnership with you? What does that tech look like that we partner with on our side that we can infuse to the facility side? So it's neat to be part of, see those challenges, but also be able to be part of those solutions.
Yeah, I think the key word is flexibility, right?
Mm-hmm. You have to be. What worked 2 years ago will not work today. It just won't.
I'm actually in the middle of reading. I was reading this today for a book club, but I'll pop it up. I'm going to ask you at the end. Bob Iger's book, The Ride of a Lifetime. And I'm on the chapter where they're cannibalizing. He's talking about cannibalizing Disney to add the streaming service, even though they had all the successful channels. And it applies everywhere. Flexibility and being willing to innovate. And he keeps saying innovate and dine is something that he learned very early in his career. So definitely, every time I talk to someone, it's always innovation. It's always flexibility. Flexibility was really the word of 2020. Like everyone kept saying, obviously saying pandemic, but there were so many like buzzwords, and not enough people were like, let's just be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we making this complicated?
Feel on.
Everyone in 2021, the word of the year was journey in CEO speak. It could have just been like, hey, we're learning, and I think that goes for every great business. So
Yeah, I think facilities had for too long the ability to just take for granted the status quo. It kept working, and the pandemic challenged that. It challenged the status quo, and it forced them to be more creative and more flexible. And for a long time, healthcare, when you look at technology, they've been behind the power curve. Fortune 1000 far exceeds tech stack when compared to healthcare. And so this is the chance and this is the opportunity for healthcare facilities to really join the digital revolution and change how they've been doing things. So whether they had to or not, I'm glad that we're here and I'm glad that we have the chance to talk about it and be creative and create solutions that never existed before.
Yeah, so I think from my understanding of healthcare. So by the way, my wife is an attorney and she does med mal law on defense side. So I hear cases like when they go bad or like when something, we take an hour-long walk at least once or twice a week, and I was listening to all our cases today, and there were some horror stories, unfortunately. So I guess I'm going to get the same stories that you did as a kid, and so will my kids, I guess, at some point.
Yes.
So interesting enough. I think healthcare, because of the regulation and the actual what they deliver on a daily basis, like rightfully so, might be slow to adapt and innovate, but shouldn't also be at the same time. So it's like one of those like perfectly threaded needles that really has to tried and tested, especially care wise, but also not be tied to falling massively behind of what's possible because of that. Does that make sense?
It does.
Whether it's in the workforce or whatever.
Well, I think where you start looking where facilities have spent money in let's say the previous 5 years before the pandemic, or even the last decade before that, it's really been on what makes money. It's going to be a robotic surgery device. It's going to be an MRI. Those are things that are revenue generating. So that's where the money needed to be invested in order to get a return on that investment. And unfortunately, in some of that, I feel like the staff and the people behind it lost a bit of their importance in that. And that the pandemic, turned it on its head and is challenging them to be more thoughtful in investing in their clinicians.
Well, if 2020, 2021 taught us anything, is that people are your number one differentiator, whether we're going to acknowledge it or not. Amen. And having good people is all the difference, and treating your people well, because right now we're in an employee market. Everything's, don't get it twisted that as the employer, you think you're in control, because that is not the reality we're living in right now. Maybe it'll change again, likely. But hey, right now you take what you get and you live in it and you try and plan the best you can. And I've heard stories of travel, nurses leaving who've been there 20 something years, maybe like your mom, because their patient load was flipped. It was terrible. It was a really hard patient load, and it's their career. It's what they care about. It's what they've put their time in. Usually very passionate about it because it's caring for someone. And if they couldn't do the job that they thought that they needed to do, then it was.
There's always going to be the clinicians that need that full-time job, right? You look at maybe somebody who's got school-age children and they can't pick up and leave. Maybe a single mom. There are always going to be the need for full-time workers. That's definitely not going to go away. It will, but that percentage will change. And the facilities need to be flexible to work with that. And what does that look like? And how do they best care for their full-time staff to keep them engaged, create the right culture, and really understand why they're there, and let the ones that want to travel go, and let them have that chance. So that, because if you give them that chance to leave and welcome them back potentially later, instead of just shoving them out the door and being angry they left, give them the chance to come back. Be happy about that. Every clinician has a story and a reason to stay or a reason to go.
Yeah, I just posted Christine's only getting worse comment, and I think we always can do better, right? And I think that's thank you for commenting, Christine, and attending and showing up. But I think I'll go back to my word, flexibility, and listening to people and making better outcomes for people. You can only get better. So love it. All right. So what, besides for Target, curbside pickup, is there anything else that you think is here to stay besides for greater flexibility in where you work? Obviously, school age people, we know that they're going to be, that's a great call out. Anything else you're seeing? And then what are you seeing trending right now?
So like I said, it's really just that need for the right tech stack, the right business partners to support your needs. So, looking at staffing, how do facilities lean on and really trust in our industry to help with bringing those technology solutions, the float pool opportunity? How do they lean on us and trust us to be, partners with them as they move forward in finding their solution to their staffing needs? Again, we're here to ultimately impact the patient care story. So how do you lean on us and what we can bring to the table with the right clinicians under our belt to support you?
All right. So I know it's always not all rainbows and butterflies, even though travel nursing is having its moment in the sun for sure. What are the challenges that Lead's facing and the industry's facing that you're seeing? And we'll start there.
So it's been an interesting ride for sure the last 2 years. We've seen highs, we've seen lows. We thought we were 6 months into it and then it was getting better and then it wasn't. So it's been quite the roller coaster. I think for Lead in particular, what's been interesting for us and a challenge is making sure that we are supporting our internal staff, continuing the culture that is so very important to us, and doing that in a remote environment. I don't have a team sitting in an office together anymore. We're all remote. We're all working from home. So, making sure that we are supporting our internal staff, whether it's those recruiters, the compliance team, the payroll team, so that they can effectively and efficiently support our clinicians. Because if we aren't taking care of our internal people, they're not going to take care of our clinicians. So that's our first and foremost challenge, is making sure we're doing that.
I 1,000% agree. I don't know if you ever listen to the podcast that I host for the industry. We always talk about taking care of your internal people because that drives way better outcomes for everybody else. And it also just goes to the fact that it's an employee's market again, and if you don't treat people well, somebody else is going to treat them better. So
absolutely. So that's our first focus, absolutely, and then the rest falls from there. So I know if my recruiters are happy, they're going to be on the phone and engaged with their clinicians. But from the clinician perspective, and so now we're on this downhill ride. You and I talked. What we probably had 6,000, 8,000 orders in our system 5 weeks ago. Today, 2,000. So needless to say, the market has contracted, and those are ballpark numbers. But I'm going to say we're a third of where we were 5 weeks ago. And then we're getting rate reductions from the clients left and right. And I have to trust that when those recruiters get on the phone and explain, I'm sorry, traveler, mid-assignment, this facility wants to lower your rate down to market standard. And if you're not okay with that, then they're going to cancel your agreement, unfortunately, and find somebody that will take it. They'll backfill it with the current market value. And that's hard. Nobody likes having these hard conversations. My account managers don't like hearing it from the facility. The recruiters don't like hearing it from the account managers. And then the recruiters have to go tell the nurses. And so it's us supporting these nurses as the market contracts, as the rates change, keeping them trusting this industry and why they should keep going in this industry, even though it doesn't always feel good in a moment like this.
Well, I think you build trust by telling people what they don't want to always hear. So bad news is good news for trust.
It is.
When delivered there. I always had that. When I was doing locums, something bad was coming down the pipe. Hopefully you would hear from me first, and I always tried to deliver it. So for all the recruiters out there, don't be afraid to give bad news because it will build trust faster than anything else. Definitely. But you're not the first person that I've talked to that I've heard this kind of happening, and we kind of expected it. Let's be honest. No doubt. It's really good. So
it wasn't, I think we all knew that this wasn't sustainable. A facility paying $250 an hour for a nurse is not a sustainable option. So we have to find in all of this the new normal and what that looks like. And again, keeping the respect and the trust through that process. But it's been the roller coaster. We kept going up, 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 and then we go down, down, down. So it's been one heck of a roller coaster for sure. But in that, you have to work smarter, not harder. So in that comes our partnerships with companies like Kyloe and other technology platforms, using automation to make sure that our recruiters aren't necessarily just doing paperwork all day long, that they get the chance to really connect with their clinicians and be a human to their clinicians and get that paperwork and stuff, out of the way and all of that white noise off their desks, so they can really be a partner to their clinicians.
I appreciate you mentioning automation and Kyloe's automation. Our marketing team who's listening is having a field day right now, so I appreciate you for making me look good. And everything's been great. I think Christine asked a good question in the comments. So her questions, she said, what can the travel nurses expect moving forward? Like, what's a realistic expectation?
Do you have a crystal ball, Christine?
Yeah. What's the short-term strategy?
Yeah. So I think right now, so we're mid-contraction. I think spring and summer is going to be hard. I don't expect anything crazy to happen through spring and summer. So this should continue for a little bit. I don't think we're ever going back where we were. I don't think that rates will hit, the 60s and the 70s anymore. We're in a bit of a new normal, and I'm excited for that. But I do expect spring and summer to be a little bit rough, but I would expect we're going to start to see, hopefully, some of that seasonality that we used to see. Come fall, we're going to build up for winter needs. And, so yes. And then can L&D please be, maternal child season? Can it please be summer again? So I'm hoping that we will start to see the seasonality again as well. But I do expect spring and summer, at least in the near term, to be still more of a contraction.
Well, I mean, this is just a very broad statement, but I think anyone who expected like the pandemic to just come to an end and all of the aftermath and after effects of it, we're living in a diluted kind of reality. Like, of course, there's going to be some weird things happening after a whole weird 24 months. And Christine said she might have a crystal ball, Beth. So if you want to ask her, she might be able to provide some. She might be able to shake it and say the answer is likely yes.
Yes, maybe.
Thank you for the question. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. I got a couple questions for you to kick out. Did your mom give you any advice when you told her you were going into travel nurse recruiting and sales? And what was it?
No, I don't think she did. But she
called you crazy. She was like, "You're crazy."
No, I think she said that I was sane for not becoming a nurse. But okay. I think most importantly, and what I learned from her is that she is a nurse, and it was always her passion. It was something that she wanted to do from day one. Is making sure that I saw that compassion and gave that same compassion in return from my side to the people that are there on the floors living that every day. So I learned a lot from that, and really what creates a nurse and what makes a nurse. And I have the utmost respect for the hard work that they do every day. And again, that's part of the reason I didn't do it. So
you saw your mom come home after 12 and be wiped. Yeah, that's definitely a reality. Okay, so my book. Do you have a book that you would recommend and someone you would follow to recommend? Because we always ask.
Oh, gracious. So I've been too busy kidding lately with all of my youngsters that I honestly have not. I'm excited. I picked up this book. I saw Nancy Hogan at the last conference, SIA conference. So this is my next book that's on my list. She was an amazing speaker. She's on Instagram as well. And I've been following her and her positivity, and her messaging is phenomenal.
Okay. So Nancy Hogan, The Awesome Human Project.
GAN.
And your follow?
Oh.
That's okay. They can be both. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, if someone wants to get in touch with you, Beth, obviously you're linked here. But what's the best way to get a hold of you if anyone wants to follow up?
Facebook is a great resource. Hit me up there. Connect with me. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm so happy that I'm not in travel nursing, so I don't have to say Facebook. If you want me, find me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yeah, Facebook, great. I'm around.
All right, I think that's a necessity too of the industry you serve. So anyway, Beth, this has been amazing. Thank you so
Rob,
much.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Everyone who jumped on, asked questions. We'll be doing these regularly. And thank you for everyone who jumped into the chat. So, all right, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Beth.